For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dlamini. Political analyst Aubrey Machiki discusses his latest column on the ANC leadership race. Aubrey, you start the column with an interesting quote from the book Dictator by Robert Harris. Where does this quote fit in the succession battle between NDZ and Cyril Ramaphosa?
Well, first of all, the quote comes from a book called Dictator. It's about Cicero, who was very famous as an advocate and an orator during the heydays of the Roman Empire. And in this quote, basically what he is saying is that sometimes you have people who have the might but lack the legitimacy. Others will have the legitimacy but not the might. You may have the numbers but not the legitimacy. Others may have the legitimacy but not the numbers. In the context of the succession battle, if you look at the Zuma faction, for instance, the Zuma faction, at least for the moment, has the numbers but lacks the legitimacy because it suffers from a very deep image crisis. Because in the perception of many, it has become the face of corruption and state capture. Whereas if you look at how people like Cyril Ramaphosa are trying to position themselves, they're trying to position themselves as the moral other of the Zuma faction. And what they're trying to say is that they have the legitimacy, but do not have the numbers. So if you look at Dlamini-Zuma and you try to explain why she would align herself with a discredited Zuma faction, the answer is that the Zuma faction has the numbers, has the soldiers, so to speak, has the swords, whereas Dlamini-Zuma does not have the swords, does not have the numbers, does not have the soldiers, but has legitimacy in the ANC. So this is a marriage of convenience between the two.
Okay. What does it mean when you say that the CR17 camp has the words but no swords, and the fact that there are rumors of Mpumalanga Premier being in support of Ramaphosa's candidature?
Well, you see, what we must bear in mind is that politicians, even when they join a faction, do so not to primarily advance the interests of the faction. They do so to primarily advance their own interests. And therefore, a faction becomes a vehicle. If a particular faction is no longer seen as an effective vehicle through which they can advance their personal interests, they will look for a faction that will do so. So either Didi Mabuza is vacillating between the Zuma faction and the faction Paul Mashatile and others represent, or he has made up his mind that the faction that can promote his interests is not the Zuma faction, to the extent that, of course, there is a rumor that he wants to be the next deputy president of the ANC and the country.
You also argue that Zuma exercises power in two ways, namely concentric circles and inner circles located in different sets of concentric circles. How does that affect the succession battle? Well,
the manner in which Zuma exercises power is in terms of concentric circles. And people misunderstand two things. There are those who don't realize that he operates in terms of concentric circles, who believe that he operates on the basis of a single inner circle. And then there are those who do understand that he operates in terms of a concentric circle. But their understanding is incomplete because they think there's a single concentric circle, whereas he relies on several concentric circles. But what he must manage is how people perceive their relationship with him. They must all believe they are at the center.
Aubrey, you also say that Zuma certainly will not be supporting NDZ if they had things their way, because she didn't support him in Polokwane, and also regarding her recent response to the Grace Mugabe imbroglio was quite shocking to them. Why do you think they are supporting her anyway?
Well, it goes back to where we started. The Zuma faction has decided to support NDZ, Dlamini-Zuma, despite the fact that she is not their preferred candidate. They do so because, in their perception, she is the only one amongst all these candidates who stands the best chance of being elected ANC president in 2017 and the head of state in 2019. So they go to her because inside the ANC she has the pedigree and she has the legitimacy. She goes to them because while they lack the legitimacy, they have the numbers.
Do you also believe that NDZ will save Jacob Zuma from the 753 charges?
Again, politicians are in politics in pursuit primarily of their own interests. Now, there is a clash between President Jacob Zuma's interests to survive politically and finish his second term as head of state, and Dlamini's interests of becoming the head of state in 2019. Because if the collateral damage that the image crisis of the president caused to Dlamini-Zuma is too deep, it is possible that Dlamini-Zuma will be elected president of the ANC in December. But if President Jacob Zuma goes all the way to 2019 and is still head of state at the time of the general election in 2019, the possibility is that when voters punish the ANC and the ANC loses power, Dlamini-Zuma will be an ANC president who does not become head of state.
Do you think that the KZN issue at hand will affect this battle? Well,
at the moment, the leadership in KZN has a problem because the High Court in Pietermaritzburg has found that the 2015 provincial conference was invalid, and the decisions and the resolutions taken at that conference were themselves, therefore, invalid. Now, politically, the problem the leadership in KZN has is that its legitimacy will be questioned, as it is already happening by its opponents. Already, Makhosi Khosa is refusing to be subjected to a disciplinary process by this leadership that she deems to be illegitimate because of the court judgment. And that may extend to the succession battle itself. I am not convinced, though, that we have reached a point where we can say that the damage that has been caused by the court judgment will be fatal to the KZN leadership, which is seen to be supportive of Dlamini-Zuma. But that it will affect the Zuma campaign to some extent is indisputable.